The news broke just after dawn. Hungary and Austria had announced plans to formally explore BRICS Plus membership. It was a move that few had anticipated, and even fewer were prepared to confront. The early morning calm was shattered as headlines flashed across screens, signaling a seismic shift in European politics. In Brussels, shock rippled through the corridors of power. Officials exchanged worried glances, their routines upended by the sudden development. Coffee cups froze midair. Briefings stopped cold. The usual morning chatter was replaced by stunned silence as the implications began to sink in. This wasn't rumor. It was a live, coordinated press conference from Budapest and Vienna. The world watched as both governments spoke with one voice, confirming their intentions. The message was clear: the old rules no longer applied. Centuries of tradition and decades of integration were suddenly called into question. In Berlin, newsrooms scrambled to keep up. In EU offices, phones rang unanswered, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of urgent calls. Disbelief gave way to alarm. The European project had always moved forward, never backward. Now, the unthinkable was unfolding in real time. Now, two member states were openly courting a rival bloc, signaling a dramatic shift in alliances and priorities. In the European Parliament, chaos reigned. MEPs whispered, "Have they lost their minds?" This is a betrayal. The sense of unity was fracturing before their eyes. The announcement bypassed all channels, a diplomatic grenade at the heart of the EU. Diplomats scrambled to respond, but the damage was already done. The timing was brutal, as the EU faced economic stagnation and global uncertainty. Markets trembled, and business leaders wondered what would come next. On the streets, confusion reigned. Was this a negotiating tactic or the first real crack in European unity? People debated in cafes and on sidewalks, searching for answers. The EU had always been a haven of peace and prosperity, a symbol of hope after decades of conflict. Now, that image was under threat. Now, two of its own were looking elsewhere, their loyalty to the Union suddenly in doubt. News anchors struggled to explain the implications, their voices tinged with uncertainty as they tried to make sense of the unprecedented move. For ordinary citizens, the move was unsettling. Many wondered what it would mean for their future, their jobs, and their sense of belonging. The bombshell had landed, and the fallout was just beginning. Editorials speculated on what might come next as analysts debated the possible outcomes. The world was watching and Brussels was speechless. The silence spoke volumes about the uncertainty gripping the continent. The first tremors of a political earthquake were being felt across Europe, leaving everyone to wonder how and if the Union would recover. This was no leak. It was a calculated spectacle, orchestrated for maximum impact. The world's media had been summoned, and every camera was trained on the stage, waiting for something historic. Orban and the Austrian Chancellor stood at synchronized podiums, their speeches broadcast live across Europe and beyond. The choreography was deliberate, signaling unity and purpose. They spoke of sovereignty, multipolarity, and forming joint groups to assess BRICS Plus. Their words hinted at a new era, one where alliances could shift and old certainties were up for debate. By going public, they forced Brussels into the open, making it impossible for EU leaders to ignore or downplay the challenge. This wasn't about technical disputes, it was a challenge to the EU's very identity, questioning the foundations of European unity and integration. For Budapest and Vienna, the EU was now just one option among many. The message was clear: Europe's future was no longer a one-way street. Their language was careful, no direct criticism, just a call for diversified partnerships. Every phrase was measured, designed to open doors without slamming others shut. They insisted, "We're not leaving the EU, just exploring opportunities." Yet, the reassurance felt thin, as if everyone sensed the ground shifting beneath their feet. But the subtext was clear: a vote of no confidence in Brussels, a signal that the old order was being questioned in public, not just in private. This public defiance shattered a 70-year taboo. Never before had member states so openly considered alternatives. For decades, joining the EU was the ultimate goal, a symbol of progress and belonging. Now, that narrative was being rewritten. Now, two members were openly considering a rival bloc, weighing their options on the world stage. The move forced a question Brussels had long feared: is the EU still the only game in town? Or is a new era dawning for Europe? The declaration was a diplomatic earthquake, and the aftershocks were only beginning to ripple through the continent. The world was invited to watch the EU's response, as uncertainty and anticipation filled the air. The stage was set for a confrontation over Europe's future, with every move now under the global spotlight. The EU was born from the ashes of war, a continent shattered by conflict and desperate for a new beginning. Its founders were determined to make conflict impossible, forging bonds that would tie nations together in peace. Economic interdependence was meant to guarantee peace, ensuring that prosperity and cooperation would replace rivalry and suspicion. For decades, the project worked, expanding, stabilizing, and welcoming new democracies into its fold, transforming the continent. Membership meant more than economics. It was about forging a common identity and upholding shared values of democracy, freedom, and human rights. After the Berlin Wall fell, the EU's pull grew stronger, especially for former communist states eager to join the Western family. For millions, joining the EU was seen as the final step to freedom, security, and lasting prosperity, a dream realized after decades of division. But now, Hungary and Austria's move challenges this narrative, raising questions about loyalty and the future of European unity. It suggests the journey isn't over. The EU may not be the final destination for every nation, and new alliances are being considered. Can a country truly be European and also align itself with China, Russia, and India? Is it possible to balance these competing identities and interests? For many, this feels like a betrayal of the sacrifices made for unity and a threat to the hard-won peace that defines modern Europe. The European dream's legacy is now in question, its future uncertain as old alliances are tested and new ones emerge. The old certainties are gone, Europe's identity's up for debate, and the continent faces a crossroads unlike any before. The meaning of European is no longer clear-cut, leaving millions to wonder what the future holds for their shared home. Brussels reacted with fury and panic. The Commission president reminded members of their duty to cooperate. Behind closed doors, officials felt betrayed. We invested billions, now this? Markets wobbled. Rating agencies put Hungary and Austria on watch. The ECB modeled the fallout, fearing for subsidies and market access. Across Europe, leaders scrambled. Some called for summits, others urged dialogue. Protests erupted outside embassies. EU flags waved in defiance. Parliamentary debates raged, exposing deep ideological rifts. Pro-EU parties demanded sanctions. Nationalists cheered the defiance. The announcement spotlighted the EU's fractures, federalists versus sovereignists. The battle for Europe's soul was now out in the open. The Union's unity had never looked so fragile. The continent braced for what would come next. BRICS began as an investment acronym, not a political bloc, but the group grew, building its own institutions like the New Development Bank. The 2024 expansion to BRICS Plus transformed it into a global coalition. For many, BRICS Plus offers a voice outside Western dominance. It champions sovereignty and non-interference, appealing to leaders at odds with the EU. BRICS Plus is diverse democracies, autocracies, and everything in between. There's no single set of values, just pragmatic cooperation. For Hungary and Austria, this flexibility is attractive. The bloc's appeal lies in its alternative vision of global order. BRICS Plus is not the EU. It's looser, more adaptable, and increasingly influential. The world's power centers are shifting. Europe is no longer the only pole. The allure of a multipolar world is growing, even within the West. Hungary's eastern opening has been years in the making. Orbán seeks ties with Russia, China, and Turkey, arguing the West's era is over. For him, BRICS Plus is the next step towards strategic autonomy. Austria's move is rooted in its tradition of neutrality, bridging East and West. Vienna sees BRICS Plus as a modern extension of its Cold War role. Both countries have economic motives. China invests heavily in Hungary. Austria eyes BRICS markets. Business leaders see opportunity, but worry about EU backlash. The EU, they argue, is too rigid and slow to adapt. BRICS Plus offers flexibility and pragmatic cooperation. For Hungary and Austria, this is about hedging bets in a changing world. The pivot east is both a risk and a calculated strategy. The stakes are high, but so are the potential rewards. Europe's old certainties are fading fast. The EU and BRICS Plus are opposites in international cooperation. The EU is deeply integrated, single market, common laws, shared institutions. Membership means strict rules and pooled sovereignty. BRICS Plus is loose, intergovernmental, and built on sovereignty and non-interference. No harmonized laws, no central authority, just consensus and flexibility. For Hungary and Austria, BRICS Plus means freedom from Brussels oversight. They can pick and choose projects, avoiding EU-style enforcement, but the EU's integration brings stability, investment, and global clout. BRICS Plus can't match the EU's guarantees or cohesion. It's a diverse group with competing interests. The choice is stark: rigid unity or flexible sovereignty. Hungary and Austria are testing which model better serves their future. The outcome could reshape Europe's balance of power. The world is watching which vision prevails. For Hungary and Austria, this is a historic gamble. BRICS Plus could open new markets and attract investment. Politically, it could boost their global status, but the risks are huge. Brussels could freeze funds, launch legal action, or suspend voting rights. Their economies are deeply tied to the EU. Alienating partners could be disastrous. Investors may flee, and BRICS investment isn't guaranteed. The US could see them as unreliable allies, straining security ties. They're walking a tightrope, trying to keep EU benefits while courting the East. One misstep could mean isolation or economic pain. The balancing act is perilous. The rewards are tempting, but the dangers are real. Hungary and Austria are betting on a new world order. The stakes couldn't be higher. Europe holds its breath. The announcement from Budapest and Vienna has forced a reckoning. Will the EU adapt or fracture under pressure? A harsh response could push more members toward BRICS. A soft one could undermine EU authority. The challenge reaffirms core values while addressing sovereignty concerns. Can the EU be flexible without falling apart? This is about more than EU politics. It's a sign of global realignment. The post-Cold War order is over. Multipolarity is here. Two European nations exploring BRICS is a watershed moment. The future is uncertain. Fragmentation or reform. The choices made now will shape Europe and the world. The ground is shifting beneath Europe's feet. No one knows where things will settle. The next chapter is unwritten.